All right. Welcome to episode 293 of Together BHA. Adam is late, but we're starting anyway. Robin, Craig, long time no see for the viewers and listeners, has been a very busy boy. But we are here to talk about the recap of 2024-2025. We're a few weeks into the off season. We're still in that weird place where we've just had the Champions League final last week and England are playing this week, but Brighton are well and truly done and have been for a while now. So it's like that weird like limbo phase before it becomes the true dry season. But Robin, Craig, how are you both doing? How's life? How's everything going?
Yeah, good. Quite happy. Not really watched any football. Watched a bit of the playoffs, but having a bit of a break. We'll probably avoid the Club World Cup, I think. I don't even know if it's got a TV deal. I think we roll seamlessly into that, don't they? So I don't know. I don't know what channel's showing it in the UK, but yeah, I don't think there will be this year. There won't be an off season because that kind of rolls around, and then we're basically into pre-season friendlies pretty much.
Yeah,
but no,
I don't know
all
why
good.
there's such an impetus on that Club World Cup this year. I have no idea. Like, I guess it's just money talks, right? Like, it's all in the US and stuff. So but yeah,
Yeah, it is a bit strange. So I got an email because I think I signed up to try and get like tickets for I think probably World Cup at some point. So I get all of FIFA's emails, and this one thing stood out for me. It sent an email yesterday or the day before, which allowed you to take an online quiz to tell you which club you should be supporting, and that just like. And it was like typical. It was like, tell us like what sort of holidays you like. Is it like beach, city break? And it was like 15 of these questions. And then it gave you like a percentage rating against like the clubs that are taking part. And that just sums up why I've just got no interest in it.
Yeah, it's a cringe tournament. I won't be partaking. But he is a little bit late, but let's chat with Adam, who I know is probably the biggest Club World Cup fan, possibly in the entire North American continent. Adam, how are you feeling about the Club World Cup? Are you excited for the inception of this new and improved Super Club World Cup? Are you excited for that?
Couldn't give a shit, mate. There were actually quite a few of the games, including the final, are happening 20 minutes from where I live, and I still don't think I can be bothered to go. And also, if you look at the ticket prices, they already lowered them because people were outraged and no one bought them. And they've lowered them and they're still outrageous. I looked, I think it was for one of the quarterfinals to go watch that. If you wanted tickets where you can actually see the pitch, it was like $500 and something per person. And it's just, it's nonsense. I hate in the US where they do the same with F1. They do the same with Formula One, right? Where they take a thing that they think people are going to latch onto and are becoming fans of, because these sports are still new in this country, right? Relatively. And they're like, well, hold on. We can rinse so much money out of these idiots. So let's just maximize the pricing and screw them as much as we possibly can. And I think it's a real shame. And they do the same with the friendlies, where we have the preseason tournaments over here. They're doing another one over here, including in Jersey. Some games are happening in Atlanta as well and somewhere else. The prices for those were hundreds of dollars to watch a preseason friendly. It's nonsense. Anyway, so yeah, I couldn't care less about this Club World Cup.
They are. They're actually doing, and Craig will know. We're doing the same thing with wrestling now. So WWE, who got bought by TKO, who also own UFC, have for the first time ever announced that WrestleMania will be in Vegas again. So they've never done back-to-back like venues. They go like wherever, and they've never done Vegas before twice. But they did it last year. They're doing it again this year, and it's the exact same situation. Like, I bought 4 tickets to Dallas in much better seats than we thought, honestly. Like, kind of accidentally succeeded. And I think they're about $180 each. And it was honestly, like, it was worth the $180. Those seats in Vegas are well into 4 figures. Nosebleeds are like $600. And they've done the exact same thing. So it's not even just like new shit they think they can latch on to. They're just like, we've done a deal with Netflix. We're owned by like the UFC. TKO guys are like, we rinse our fans with the UFC. We'll do it the same here. And it's probably going to work because it's the FOMO stuff, right? Like, half the people there aren't even fans. Like, when you see a bunch of idiots in Miami like in the paddocks of the Formula One, and they
that upsets me greatly. Yeah, you're just like, this is weird. They've managed to congregate some of the world's collection of biggest rich imbeciles humanly possible. It's just so many like streamers that they invite to it, like just talentless idiots that have never watched a Grand Prix in their lives. And you're like, well, this is the end times, really, isn't it? But anyway,
right.
Season was good, wasn't it?
Yeah, let's get away from old men yelling at clouds and transition into what this is supposed to actually be, a 24-25 season review. So let's start with, well, the season end and in and of itself. Brighton and Hove Albion, we wrapped up 8th place, 61 points, one off our best ever total in our history. I guess the first thing we want to really talk about is, like, what are your feelings with the way the season unfolded? Craig, we'll start with you. How you thought it was going to go at the beginning, how it's ended, that 8th place. What's your vibe going into the summer? How's your mojo?
Mojo, like, out of 10, I'd say it's a good 7. I think I'm quite optimistic, maybe compared to some people that we see online. I think we came into the season obviously expecting a sort of like a transition season, so I guess that's where my hindsight is coming from. But it's just sort of, I was expecting a transition season. We actually got better than what I thought we would do, but I think that's also marred and compared to the fact of your Forests, your Villas, and your Fulhams and your Brentfords also doing equally as well. So Mojo's good. I think it was a good season. It's a good first season for what is a very inexperienced manager with a lot of new players. So that's my general feeling. We'll go into a lot more detail around it. But 7 out of 10, I think quietly optimistic for next season if we build on what we did this year. So I'm good with it. What about yourself, Robin?
Yeah, I mean, I'm never going to be in a world where I'm unhappy with a top half finish in the Premier League. And I think on our pre-season prediction, I think we varied in range from about 12th to 8th, I think, between us. So really good season overall. I mean, I'd say 8th place is absolutely fine. Obviously, we don't really know how the European thing is still going to play out yet. There is a narrative where we end up in the Conference League. Similar to Craig, I'm excited for next season. I think if you look at the squad we're starting to assemble, with the transfers sort of nearly done already, I think we're going to be in a good position. I think it's going to be tough next season, I think, as well. I mean, you can't imagine Spurs and Man United and some of the clubs that have had terrible seasons. You can't necessarily imagine them being that bad again. So overall, pretty good.
You know, and by the way, I've got to pause because I like Stephen's question too much to not answer it. If Brighton had to associate with an F1 team, who would it be? It's got to be Williams, hasn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
It's got to be Williams. Not too much color changing needs to go on or anything like that. It's a nice link up, both sort of underdog elements to it. I think it's Williams.
We've also got like the Spanish flair, like the flair as signs, and well, half of the team that we have right now. And you've just got the good owner, like the Vals, the principal. You've absolutely nailed it. It's got to be Williams. And I'm also massively biased because that's my team. So I'm going to just say that regard. I would have shoehorned them in anyway. They could have been bright orange, and I'd have been like, yeah, definitely Williams.
I feel like Aston Martin's like Chelsea. So, you know, something where you're like, arsehole money, seem like arseholes, and it still aren't that good. You know, like Ferrari's got to be like, is Man United Ferrari?
This is a summer episode, isn't it? This is a summer.
What was the question? Brighton season. For me, I think I said this on another podcast. It's about how the story plays out. Yeah, how the story plays out of the season. Because if you use Nottingham Forest as an example, right? If you ask any Nottingham Forest fan, would you be happy with what did they finish? Was seventh, sixth, seventh. European football, after you nearly got relegated last season, they would have all bitten your hand off for that. But if you ask any Forest fan right now, they're disappointed because of the way that they ran out of steam and tailed off towards the end of the season. And I think you have to take that into account with us as well, where we again, cannot get out of our system these ebbs and flows in performances of top tier quality and high end winning results, and then completely falling off a cliff and going on streaks of losses. And that was another theme this year. We happened to end on one of the ebbs where I think, what did we win, 4 out of our last 5 or whatnot of the season? Yes, against some opposition that maybe had given up a little bit, but that was a nice way to end the season. 8th is a good place for where we're at. New manager, a lot of new players that came in. Does it still feel like we left a little bit on the table, given where we were at a few months into the season when we were like toying with 4th and 5th for a little bit of a while, and our performances were electric? Yes, because I think the ceiling of what we saw on performances this year warranted better than 8th. But if you asked me at the start of the season, is 8th a good position? I would have said absolutely. So it's a bit of a fence-sitting answer, but that's kind of how I feel in my head.
I think it's only natural though, right? Like, because this has been such a topsy-turvy season, there's not been like any particular like inconsistency in like win, loss, draw, loss, win. It's just been straight up like 4 wins on the bounce, 6 losses on the bounce, 5 wins, 2 draws, 7-0 loss. Like, it's just like, even when you're at your absolute highest and then like you go to Forest and get dicked, like it's such a strange I think we've said it about 8 times already this season, but like we were consistently inconsistent with the fact that we would go on run after run after run. I guess let's start with some of the things for obviously reviewing the good, bad, like anything that you would like to see improving next year. So if you guys have got one each, like in terms of things you would like to see the squad improve upon next year, that can be tactically, that can be how it looks, that can be anything really. I'll start. I would like to see our squad age in terms of starting 11 rise a little bit more, which is unusual, I know. But it's what De Zerbi came to the forefront with his arguments about. He wanted some more peak players coming in and able to like keep the ship steady. Hertzler has already said that he wants to bring in strength and experience, which is essentially the same answer De Zerbi gave, really, isn't it? Like, that's exactly the same sort of thing he's looking for. And for me, like, it's hard not to like find an issue with that. Like, I think they're absolutely spot on. So for us, our starting squad average 11 this season was 24.7. It's the youngest in the Premier League. I think maybe second youngest, actually. But it's one of the youngest starting 11s on average across the league by a million miles. Without Welbeck in the starting 11, but with Ruta, so swap those two out, right, which we were running for a little while there. It's 23.7, which then like plummets us to the youngest by a million miles. For me, like, we need to bring in a couple of players that are in that 26, 27, 28 range. Unfortunately, I know they cost a lot of money and sell on is very minimal. But for me, I think that's what I would like to see us move upon here, or at least listen to Hertzler when he's asking for that. Because we have an awful lot of very young players and an awful lot of quite like older players. We don't really have many peak players, and the ones that are in their peak, we're talking about selling, like, or potentially losing this summer, right? With Mitoma being 28 and he's on the chopping block, Estepinian 27, he's on the chopping block. Like, whether those moves ever go through, I don't know. But like, they're two of those players that are in those key age group that Hertzler and De Zerbi are saying they want slightly more of, and we potentially are offloading 2 of them. By the by, that it's our entire left side as well. We'll talk about that probably in August, if and when that happens. But what about you guys? I'll go to Robin. What would you like to see change, improved, acted upon?
I think just making our squad a bit more balanced, because I think we've talked about a lot. We were quite lopsided, as in certain positions we were absolutely stacked, arguably too stacked in certain areas to give people a lot of football, and in other areas like fullback, we weren't. So I think the biggest thing for this window is tinkering around a little bit so that we have a kind of an equally balanced squad in terms of depth all over the pitch. And just on your point, Boskagli, who are obviously pretty much signed, is 27, bang on. I think that would be the main thing is getting that balance in.
Adam, Craig, whoever would like to go next.
I'm adding an addendum to my previous statement about the end of season as well. If Palace didn't win that cup final, we round out the season and we've qualified for European competition. That singular game, I think, changed the perception of this season for the fan base. Because if you look at this and you go, wow, we finished 8th and we're going to be playing Europe, everyone's ecstatic. And instead, it's a very different scenario that's potentially unfolded. Asterisks, whether the governing bodies see that it's unfit for a club owner to own 45 clubs in the same European competitions as one another, but we'll see what they say. For me, it's the injury one. What do I want to see improved? I don't want our players all to be on a bloody operating table every week. Worst injury situation in the league. If it's been felt like it's been like this for multiple seasons. We overhauled the medical staff. We brought in, that German doctor and some new people, new physios. Well, that didn't work. Or whether we have to wait to see the fruits of their labor, whether the intensity of the out of possession pressing of Herzl and De Zerbi's style of football contributes to more injuries. I don't know what the reasoning is. No one seems to know what the reasoning is. But that's the thing that cost us the difference between a slightly different position in the table at the end of the season. Because we know some of the bad runs we went on, you remember we were missing so many players at certain points. We were just like, who do we even line up here? By the way, I think that contributed to the fact that we had the most different goal scorers in the entirety of the Premier League, right? No club had a higher number of different goal scorers than Brighton and Hove Albion this year. So there's a lot of positives, I think, from a stats standpoint of things that I was really ecstatic with. That goal scorer one is important. I think the set piece is improved in the second half of the season as well. But the big bugbear is still the injury piece.
And no one's mentioned tactically changing anything. So I think we saw a big change after that 7-0 where you sort of moved into this non-possession based tactic of pressing and getting the ball and making higher XG type positions and circumstances as opposed to creating them within possession. So it's less of a tinkering or what I would like to change, but I would like to see us continue doing that and just playing to our strengths and pressing, right? There's a lot of pressing going on. That's probably why the injury list is so high. I'll look into a little bit more, but like when it comes to pressing and just the energy that the team has, I think we also need to build on that and keep that going. Whether that's through reducing the number of injuries, whether that's introducing new people into this team, whether that's introducing people that have been out on loan, and also giving them a full preseason with the team as well. It's a weird one because again, you can't really do anything about the injuries, but at the same time, like using the right people in the right circumstance is also important. So less of a tinkering, more of a let's continue. But I want to see that intensity continue and become even better, because when we did do that this season, we were nearly unplayable against some of the best teams.
I'll do I've done the research for you actually, Craig, and you're actually spot on.
Perfect.
You're actually absolutely correct. So the top 3 teams with on Premier injuries for days missed through injury, sheer number of injuries, are Brighton, Spurs, and I believe it was, I'm not sure, but basically it was all 3 with the highest injury rates, all correlated to the teams with the highest intensity pressing. Spurs miles ahead of everybody else, but they obviously were not top. We were in terms of injury list, but they were well up there for injuries, as we know, and their pressing was insane. We were a little bit lower on the pressing stakes. We tended to press further into the middle third as opposed to insanely high like Spurs did, and we were right up there as well. So you're totally spot on. That's just absolute fact that the top 3 teams with the highest pressing percentages were the top 3 teams with the highest injury stats. So it needs to be worked on, needs to be looked at. And with Europe being a potential, like, it's either going to be a blessing, right? Like, if we don't get Europe, it may be one of those times where we could capitalize on others. Being squad depth wise, your Palace, your Forests, they're going to struggle this year, I think. So let's talk about things to carry into next year instead. So things you've really liked the look of this year that you would love to see coming in. What have you seen so far under Fabian Hürzeler that you are absolutely thrilled about, that you want to see more of, and potential things that you might want to see that are a little bit different? So I've seen a lot of people online talk about the idea of the potential for 3 at the back next season. How do you feel about that? Do you think that's a realistic prospect with the transfer rumors that are going on, the players going in, the players going out? How do you feel about the performances against the top teams, the bottom teams, the mid-table teams? The record at the Amex, the record away from home? What would you like to see carry into next year that you've seen so far this season under Fabian Hürzeler?
Robin, maybe you should answer. You love anything Hürzeler, you adore. So,
I think the main thing is it's a funny one because it's a bit of a blessing and a curse. The biggest thing is we were top of the league when it came to rescuing points, having been behind in games.
Clear. I know. I actually think we were joint top with
us with Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think.
Yep.
So that's something that obviously, in a sense, you want that trait to continue, because I think it was under Potter we went through that period of time where basically if we went a goal behind, maybe it was Potter or Houghton, either one, like early Premier League years, basically if we considered the first goal, we were knackered. And now we're in a position where we know that we can go 1-0 down or 2-1 down or whatever it might be, and we know that the squad has got ample sort of mental ability to be able to come back from that. But the flip side of that is obviously you don't often want to be behind in games, so it's one of those sort of slightly bizarre metrics. But I was very, very happy with that, so I'd like that to continue. And then probably the obvious one is our ongoing record against teams towards the bottom of the division. But that is not something, as we know, that can be levelled solely at Fabian Hürzeler's Brighton team. We've seen that for quite a long time. So I think if we could crack that, and I'm sure we'll probably come on to the Leicester and the Wolves games, particularly when it comes to dropping points in the Ipswich game, etc. But I think that would be a big positive.
And this was about tactical stuff, right, Josh? I think the big thing for me, and maybe this is slightly less tactical, more about personnel, and we're already addressing it because it's been mentioned. We have to talk about the defensive frailties and the issues that were created there, and some of how often it was that we were caught out as soon as we lost possession. And that high line obviously contributed to a lot of the positives out of this team. What we saw, though, is we simply just didn't have the right people involved to play that system defensively. Again, the injuries didn't help, but we're invariably going to talk about Lewis Dunk. Adam Webster's probably going to get some talk, even though he's very, very good in a few of the games that he was able to play. But we were caught out far too often when it came to that setup. And the other piece on the flip side of that is there were a number of games where we started to fall back into that Potter era, pass the ball around the opposition box. And Stephen has just mentioned that as well as I'm speaking, that we don't have that sort of stamp on the neck, and using his words, to kill off teams. I agree. We didn't have that incisiveness, that breakdown when those teams, and Robin, you talked about this, the lower half teams that sit and defend and then counter. We still do not have an answer to that. I feel that, to me, that's almost less tactical and more personnel. Like, what players can we bring in that have that cutting edge that isn't reliant on us running up the left-hand side of the pitch with Matoma and being able to cut in and put a ball in? But some of it is about how do we just get the ball into the box more, as opposed to just passing it sideways and have Jan-Paul Van Hecke be our playmaker. So that, I'd love to see that change a little bit next season.
Cool. Let's talk highlights, lowlights, because Craig was the one that catalysted that question really by talking about the pressing. Let's talk highlights and lowlights. Let's start with the lowlights so we can finish with the good stuff before we move to the next section. I like it doing that way. So let's start with the lowlights of the season. I guess we can all just cover one each, but I suspect there's going to be an awful lot that involved us conceding 7 goals. But what was your lowest moment of the season as an Albion fan, Craig?
The inevitable first place is the 7-0, but I also think it kind of jump-started the second half of the season for us. It was kind of a blessing in disguise at the same time, and I know Adam spoke about that previously too. The Wolves game also comes to mind as well. Like you needed those points and you really dropped the ball.
That's the one I've got PTSD about. I still can't get over that one.
Yeah. And I think unjustifiably so. I think Weaver is still on the chopping block because of that one instance. But yeah, it's sort of those two do spring to mind when you're talking about a portion of the season, just like towards the end of the year, the November, December, January was just really tough. Like that was a real trough in what we were trying to do. This team is, and this is not a Herzler thing, this is a Brighton thing. We tend to just start the seasons really well. We have in the last sort of 3 seasons where you sort of set this bar and maybe sort of exceed your expectations in the first 10 games, and then you sort of fall off a cliff a little bit. You either revert to type or you just can't keep that up. So it was a really tough period there where we couldn't do anything. It just felt like we were just really poor throughout. Individual wise, yeah, the Wolves game, the Forest game, the in terms of portion of the season, there was a really bad trough towards the end of 2024 where I really just think we couldn't even buy a win.
Yeah, all fair. I thought like the obvious one for me was going to be Forest, and then I sat back and I thought about it, and I thought actually, like, because I was there, and like it was grim, but like I got to the point where I was thinking back and I was thinking actually, Villa the year before was grimmer for me. Like the 6-1, even though obviously it's factually not as bad of a loss, it felt worse. So then it's like, okay, like, yeah, it probably is Wolves as well for me. Like that's the one, because everything that came from that, like the social media meltdowns, the threats and abuse that came from social media, from Brighton fans towards players, Estepinian, Weaver, especially the pair of them, like it was truly like one of like the grimmest and like cringiest times for an Albion fan on the internet, I feel, because like the abuse and stuff that was being leveled at these players like was just insane. Like I've never seen anything like it. Like it was super embarrassing, like to read it and think like these are grown adults. Like it's one thing when like you can see they're clearly like 14, right? Like you're a child. Like, but when these like are grown adults and they're like, if I see Weaver in the city, I'm gonna punch him in the face. And it's like I please like seek help. Like it's
one of our best players towards the end of the season, by the way, playing at right back,
playing out of position, yeah, which is the most ironic piece, yeah. So yeah, I think Wolves for me was like the grimmest moment as well, because then, as you say, Craig, like you're right, like although typically I then didn't attend the next 3 matches, we then bounced back and did great. So that was great. But yeah, I think that's probably like the lowest piece. Let's talk high then and start with Robin. What are your key standout moments, matches, anything that stands out as your particular highlights for the year? And then we'll bounce to you, Adam.
Obviously the Liverpool game towards the end of the season was one of our best performances, and Matoma plucking that ball out of the sky. My brain still can't actually process that. The back-to-back Chelsea games, obviously very, very satisfying as well. I think those kind of stand-up moments. The West Ham game, often, so I think it's second half of the season. It's kind of post-Forest for me. Post that Forest debacle, produced a lot of the best moments of the season, I think.
I got one more. I got one low, but don't leave me out the low point. You know.
I didn't get a low either.
Yeah, come on. This is. He did it intentionally, Robin. He knew.
I know. He did.
This is our passion. Our passion. Yeah. Because I would put the 2-2 Leicester result is a contender as well, right? Because that was so sad that we couldn't beat them. It wasn't the same tier as Wolves, but it was just come on, man, because that was Van Nistelrooy's like first game. They were a disaster, and we're like, oh yeah, whatever, we can't.
And then they went on about 18 games without scoring a goal, and we then immediately let them score 2.
And then we did it
later.
again. Yeah, and then we did it again. Yeah, the tale of the Leicester. Upside for me on a personal level, it was the Spurs at home game. Because we had that first half performance when we got absolutely destroyed. I was in a Spurs supporter club bar near where I live. So there was about 20, 30 Spurs fans. I was obviously the only Brighton fan there. And the half time, I was getting abuse. And then they all shut up in the second half. And I thought I was going to get beaten up. And I had to, shuffle out at the end. But that, for me, that was a real fun one.
I'll have mine as well, because it was it was late. It was not late, the exact opposite. It was really early in the season, and it was the win against United at home, because it was right in front of me. The season's still new. Hopes are alive for everything, right? Like the dream is there. Pretty sure it's put a second or top at that goal, and it was truly at the death. And just watching it float over and realizing that like every single Manchester United player decided to vacate the entire back half of the box, and you had like 3 blue and white striped shirts there. And I mean, we'll get onto him and his inevitable exit here this summer, but like of all the players you want in a clutch moment, which we'll miss, João Pedro is the guy you want in the 95th minute that needs to finish anything, right? And he did, and it was absolutely mental. And like, I think it was so early on, and the hopes were, everything was alive, and it was just unbelievable seeing the fact that everything was just wide open. And then of course also watching Baleba belt that one in at the end with West Ham, because that was just inhumane play. Just ridiculous. Craig,
highlights. Yeah, I think that the 2 Chelsea ones are. I think that was also just 2 really good results. I think that was straight after the Forest game as well. Like that was just something you just needed. The Baleba goal, I think also really good. I think that's you guys pretty much covered it. I'm not gonna sort of bring up everything else, but the general highlights I think are fairly synonymous with everyone. I think it's a really good end to the season as well, right? Like you kind of needed that. Like Europe was still up for grabs. You have to remember, like that takes a certain mentality and a certain steel to go and win 4 out of your last 5, where you are chasing something. We still had something to play for. Yes, you can beat whatever's put in front of you. A few people on the beach, whatever, but still finishing the season strong when there still was Europe on the table. Again, a real positive this season has been the mentality of these players and being able to come back from adversity, whether that be full-time results, whether that be 2-0 down at half-time, whether that's just whatever is in front of you. This is a young team that know how to fight back. And that's something that we have been lacking in previous seasons.
Yeah, I totally agree. Adrian in the chat, his highlight was coming over from the US for the City home game. And Andy in the chat also saying, don't forget Man City as well. So, I mean, that's a hell of a trip for Adrian to have made, right? Like to come, what absolute like optimism do you have that you go, what home game should I go to this season? If I can only do one, I'm going to fly all the way over from the States. That's right. I'll do City at home. And then to watch us win as well in the fashion we did, that has some serious optimism behind it. All right, cool. So let's move on and go towards the kind of end of season awards. Let's start with we've got a couple of them. Let's start with player of the season. Let's just start with the big one first. Jan-Paul van Hekker won it for the club himself, and I think he also won players player as well. So he was very much beloved this season. But there are honestly quite a few names that I would not be shocked to hear any of you mention. We're in a situation where, again, Adam, as you say, it probably like the injuries lend towards the fact that there were multiple players that were able to step up at multiple times. Same with the 19 different goal scorers. So we'll start with you, Adam. Who is your player of the season for this year? And then we'll just kind of go around Craig, Robin, and then I'll finish it off.
So I always get thrown off by this, right? Because what are the rules? Because is there a player of the year and a young player of the year? Because then,
Well, your ChatGPT spat out agenda tells me there is a young player of the season. So we will defer to you, Adam, and say that there is a young player of the season as well. Or do you want to just have whatever you want? There's no rule.
Yeah, no, I'm not letting the AI control us. We're still in control. It's Carlos Baleba for both of them. For me, I don't have any statistics to back that up, purely on the fact that every time I watched him, barring maybe 1 or 2 games, he was broadly the best player on the pitch every single time. He repaired some of the issues that he had in past seasons. And I say past seasons, let's remember, this is a guy that Roberto De Zerbi did not want to play. This is a guy still completely coming fairly fresh onto the scene. And he was remarkable defensively. The problem he had in the previous season was he would take 1 touch too many and lose possession and get himself in a tricky spot. This season he changed, where he would still do that a little bit, but he's got enough skill and the right football intelligence to wriggle out of those spaces and then just bomb down the pitch. And he's added the ability to strike a mean ball and score, which we've seen a couple of times this season as well. He also seems just like a really good, fun guy. I think he's going to be
he's hilarious.
Yeah, he's just a funny bloke. He's funny bloke. I completely see how people said Jan-Paul Van Hecke. I get it, but it's Baleba through and through for me.
Yeah, it's probably the same for me too. I think Van Hecke's definitely got it. I think it's a very good choice. And I think he's also been really good this year. But you're right, Baleba is that game changer. He brings us to another level. So when it comes to player of the year, I get it. I think young player of the year, I think Hinshelwood needs to be in there too, in some capacity. I also think Ayari needs to be in there as well, because I think he is just stepped up from whatever you've seen. So
wait, there's a most improved. Hold on, hold your horses.
That's going to change. That's going to change everything. Yeah. Player of the season, it's Baleba as well. I think he's different class.
Just to go slightly rogue, I mean, I do agree on Baleba. I think he would be player of the season, but I think there is a world in which you can give it to Karim Matoma, purely on the basis that if you go back to our previous question and we looked at the best moments of the season, Matoma has produced a good chunk of those despite being out injured for a couple of times. So as a rogue selection, I'd throw Matoma's name in there, just slightly unconventionally. Young player, I agree with Craig as well. There's a few names. I mean, Minte's got to be in there, considering it's easy to forget he's only 20, considering the amount of football that he played. And we know that he did have some less than optimal games, but to be honest, who doesn't in the Premier League, and who doesn't at the age of 20 in their first season in the Premier League? So I think I'd put him in the conversation as well. And probably a final. I mean, it's difficult because you've got to put someone like Danny Welbeck, right? I mean, it's the first time he's ever hit 10 plus goals in a Premier League season, and we had to rely on him quite a lot considering his age. So it seems difficult not to mention him as well. I know I'm sitting on the fence a lot, but I think all of them deserve a mention.
I like that your out of left field choice for player of the season is the club's best player.
Well, I mean, but I'd shoot it back to you. Go, why didn't you mention him then?
Fair point.
He's actually there.
Yeah, he's I will say it comes back to the consistency. I think his high points have been higher, and he's rescued us from games, and I think he's more dominant on the pitch as a player in terms of what he can do. But the consistency from Baleba was there. I think that's the difference for me. But I do, anytime anyone says anything good about Danny Welbeck, I also I always agree, because this is his best season ever. This is Danny Welbeck's best season ever as a professional footballer.
Yeah. For me, I'm going to toe the club line, the Andy Naylor decision. I'll just I'm gonna pick Jan-Paul van Hekke, and I'll tell you why though. And like, it is also a personal choice because for me, like, for my life as an Albion fan, like we've always had, from the minute we've had any kind of like solidity, like, so after that, like 98, 99, 2000 stuff, like once we were in the Withdean and like settled down, and like my dad was taking me to games because he wasn't scared of like people ripping each other apart, like we've always had like one centre half that stood above everybody else, like Danny Cullip, Gordon Greer, Lewis Dunk. Like, you've always had one that's like that cult hero centre back. And like Lewis Dunk got hurt this season more than once, and he also dropped off a cliff in form, right? Like, we all know this. He knows it probably, right? He's not an idiot. Like, he's played long enough. But like, we all talked about Jan-Paul van Hekke like being the guy to step up to the mantle, and like, holy shit, did he step up to the mantle? Like, he played so many minutes this season. Like, I think only Bart played more, and like, I just thought he was unbelievable. Like, he didn't really put a foot wrong. I think for me, the only thing I would like to see him improve upon, and I think he will, is scoring a few more goals, because I think he's capable of doing it. But for me, that's why I'll toe the party line from the club and say Van Hekke, because he was the guy. Like for me, I always want to know who's stepping up next. Like, who's your like heir apparent to the next guy? And like, I hope I don't have to think about that until like 2031, when Van Hekke's pissing off somewhere in like to Barcelona, right? And we need the next guy to step up as the guy. But for me, he is now the king. Like, the king is dead. Long live the king. Like, Dunk still has a role to play. He will, I'm sure. He may end up starting almost every game next season alongside him. I don't know if we play a back three. But for me, Van Hekke's the guy. Like, I just think he's inherited the mantle, and he's the guy. Young player is obviously Baleba, because that means I can also say him, and he's a phenomenal footballer. And I'm delighted we're keeping him. Like, I think it seems almost guaranteed he's staying. He wants.
Why
to stay.
would you say it?
He said he wants to. He said he wants to stay. Like, he said very clearly, I have no interest in leaving yet. And Romano hasn't said a word. So if Romano's not saying anything, that means that the agent isn't even like trying something like João Pedro is, right? Like, there's no way that Romano would not be on this like flies on shit if he had the slightest inclination that he could get Baleba prized away from this club.
Well, you say that. I mean, who was it? One of the Owls that bid for Mitoma in January. That felt like, where the hell did that come from? And I just hope that doesn't happen with Baleba.
Well, I think that is the only risk. I think that is the only risk we have, is if one of the big boys in Saudi or somewhere else shit themselves and go, he'll do. Let's just splash £110 million on this kid and just like screw it. Like, we've got the money and we're panicking, like something like that. But I don't see it other than that. Let's go negative next. Who was your biggest disappointment of the season? Like, who was your biggest, like, who was it? Someone that came into this season you're excited to see, whether it's new signing, right? And you're like, oh, like, yeah, like we've done a big deal for Kadioglu, buzzing, and then he gets crocked. Or is it someone that you saw for the last 2 or 3 seasons and you're excited to see them continue to grow, and you're like, like, they didn't do anything that I was hoping. Like, they did not do what I was hoping they were going to do. Let's start with Craig.
Cool. I don't know. I think anyone you choose is kind of unfair in different ways. Like, you can use Kadioglu and say, I expected more, but also like, he's been injured for half of the season. I will put Matt O'Reilly out there. I do think he hasn't been given enough chance in the position that he wants to play. I know he's been very vocal about that once the season ended. But just given what he did at Celtic, what he is capable of doing, we just didn't see it enough. Again, crocked by a horror tackle, completely get it. You get the Man City goal as well, and you suddenly think this guy's got something really about him, and he just never hit that next gear. I hope we do see it. I hope we keep hold of him. Honestly, there are rumors of him going out. I don't like that. I would like to keep him. But I think just in the games that I did see him, there was just a little something missing. I think it's there, but we just didn't see it yet.
I don't mind going next because I think you could throw Lewis Dunk out there, which many people would. But there's one that people are sleeping on probably here, and it is the biggest disappointment. And I think I don't see the weight back yet either. It's Evan Ferguson. And what the hell is that fall off? Because this was £100 million man a year ago. Chelsea, Man United, all trying to get the next Alan Shearer. And he couldn't get game time at West Ham, who just basically don't have a striker. I think he played 8 games, most of them as sub. Tragic. And yeah, he had the injuries, but even when he was given the chance, looked awful. Barring, I think, did he score 1 goal for us before he went out on loan? And it was a bit of a sort of
he scored in that Wolves home game, didn't he?
Sounds right. It was a bottom.
Because he got the second goal in that Wolves home game that we thought, oh, nice for Evan to come back. He's wrapped up the win.
Yeah.
And then all hell broke loose.
Yeah, and that I for one am really quite astounded at how poorly the last 18 months have gone for Evan Ferguson, just given the hope that everyone had for him. But Stephen brings up a name that had escaped me that, thinking twice about it now, should have probably been my choice. But I'll hand over to whoever wants to go next.
I was going to say Ferguson as well. I mean, there's I've also got a bit of regret around Enciso as well, and to the extent that there's just such a good player in there, and for whatever reason, we've just not been able to either consistently see it or get it out. I mean, I think it's sort of tied in quite neatly with Ferguson, and both of them, if you go back 18 months, as Adam alluded to, these were 2 of the the most talked about and exciting young players in world football, and they've both been shipped off on loan to clubs down towards the bottom of the division. I mean, Enciso's had a bit more of an impact. He scored a couple of Enciso goals that we know he's capable of, but it looks like he's going to be going off to presumably a fairly kind of middling club in Europe. So I've got disappointments about. It's not really disappointing. It's sort of what might have been with Enciso, and just who on earth knows what's going on with Ferguson.
Yeah, I'll jump on the Adingra bandwagon, because for me, he is a player that, when you look at his season last year, he played a lot of football under De Zerbi. He really did. He played on the right a lot. He did pretty well. He wasn't a player that stood out as an absolute bust, right? You didn't look at him in the way you did this season and think he doesn't belong in the Premier League. He won the African Cup of Nations with his country and was literally electric, the best player on the pitch for large parts of that tournament whenever he played. And
literally electric is a stretch, but I guess maybe depending on your biological. But yeah, go on.
But the fall off is insane. He looks like he's lost every attribute possible. He's weak and easily shoved off the ball. He has lost all use of his left foot. He can't shoot. He can't pass. He can't defend anymore. There was times under De Zerbi where he would bomb up and down that wing, and he would be exhausted, and you would see it, and he would just keep going, up, down, left or right, whatever it was on. He's lost that. He's lost everything. I don't know what has happened to him, but his decision making is shocking. His stature has fallen. Everything has gone wrong for Simon Adingra. I don't know how. I don't know how it went wrong. I don't know how you improve it. He's 23 years old. Minte is easily outbeat him on the right. Mitoma is easily, he's as Adam said earlier, he's the best player at the club, right? So he's not going to beat him there. And honestly, it sounds harsh, but in fact, it doesn't sound harsh. It's just the truth. If Mitoma leaves, who here is going, we're all right. We're sorted at left wing. Adingra will slot straight in.
I mean, I think what you've got to look at is that Tommy Watson, who's obviously coming in the summer, there were hefty rumours of him coming in January from Sunderland.
Well, that's exactly it, right? So you're talking about a 19-year-old kid.
Yeah, but also the reason why he didn't is that Sunderland wanted Adingra to go on loan to the Championship as part of that deal. Now, you can make a case of going, that's completely mental. Like, why would you ask for a player who was, runner-up in the African Player of the Year, whatever it was, a couple of years ago? But the fact they even considered that a remote possibility says quite a lot about his fall.
I agree. All right, let's go with the last one. Well, two, but the second one is a really quick fire piece. So the last one is a positive, because I'm trying to end everything on a positive, because there's a few listeners that think we're mean and nasty and negative. So let's start with a positive.
And they are right.
Yeah, they are. That's why I skipped you two for the negative and you still jumped in. All right. So last piece on personnel of the review of the season, really. And I'll start with you, Robin. Who are you most excited about next season? So we can go back next season and go, how do you feel about blah, blah season? Who are you most excited about going into this season? And if you want to use Boscagli, you can use Boscagli, right? Like, or Tom Watson. Let's not do crazy shit of like potential signings. They seem to be the only two that are certain. If you want to do those, feel free. But other than that, who are you most excited for next season?
Hopefully a fully fit Kadioglu, because I think his positional versatility and his engine in the games that we saw him in, I think he's exactly the sort of player that fits nicely into Hertzler's system, and he's coming into that age profile, 25, 26, that we mentioned about. I mean, he's an experienced international player. We need him to have a full or as close to a full season. So I think it might be a bit of a boring answer, but I think him.
Wait, who was it, Robin? I sneezed as soon as you said the name.
Kadioglu.
Yeah,
fully fit Kadioglu for the season.
Yeah. I mean, Craig, I don't want to cut you off. I'm getting really, I'm overly excited about this Kostoulis guy, the Greek forward that seems like it's imminent. And by the time you're listening to this, we might have already signed him. I as soon as I basically found out that his nickname was Babis and Babis Stuta, that got me excited, because I always loved Gabriel Batistuta, and if he's anything like him, if he's half as good as Gabriel Batistuta, then we've got a hell of a player. If we're going to lose João Pedro, which seems almost certain, I think we've got enough solid coverage in those positions to allow a younger player to be blooded in over a decent period of time. Because you just bring in Georgie, right? And he just plays in that role, and you want him in that role anyway as the 10, and we were already crowded in that position. So that's great. Georgie comes in. We've got other players that can also play in that 10 role too. Then you've got this young kid that's going to come in and can basically step in as the 10 if needed, but arguably wants to be in that 9 role. And we've already talked about how we don't really have a ton of forwards outside of who knows what's going on with Evan Ferguson, an aging Danny Welbeck. And then you've got this young kid that's going to come in and is being compared to, like I said, Batistutas and your Cavani's and your Inzaghi's and that type of lead the line forward, but with the football intelligence where he can drop back as well. I'm really excited about this kid, and he probably won't make a ton of impact next season. It'll probably be a season or two too early for him. Absolutely could be a flop. But for me, if the club is this excited about him, and they fought massively to make this signing happen. There's been rumors of competition from other clubs. They've had to come back with multiple bids. They tried to do a swap deal with SEMA, if all this reporting is true. And let's not forget, he's one of 2 Greek strikers that we'll be bringing in this year. 2 young Greek strikers. I don't know what, someone suddenly got some obsession with something's going on over in Athens or whatnot, but that's what's got me pumped.
But I mean, you're also noting that we're probably like going to make 21 million in profit from selling Pedro and signing this kid. Like, That's like the weirdest thing. Like he is like this big, like vaunted dude, but like, yeah, we're about to make a profit on his like buying and selling, which is weird. Yeah, Craig, go ahead.
Jorginho Ruta. I think we missed him. I think having him fully fit and available for the whole season makes everyone else better. So I think having a fully fit Ruta again, I think will be really good. Andy said in the chat as well, Brian Gruder, I think you saw glimpses of what he's able to do towards the end of this season. I'm excited to see what he can push on and do. We are pretty stacked in that sort of front four in sort of attacking roles. It's going to be exciting to see who lands those places and what sort of rotation there is. But I think there is something in there with Gruder, and I think we've seen glimpses of it. A full preseason and a good little run in the team. I think he could also be very, very good. So Ruta and Gruder for me.
Yeah, I think it's going to be Gruder's coming out season. Like, I think it's going to be his big party next year. Like, I think we've seen enough in this last 10 games. Like, he seems to have got up to speed. He's like got that strength, like Premier League stuff. Like, he looks ready. But for me, I totally agree with you, Greg. It's Georgie for me. Like, he, in the same vein as Baleba, seems like just one of the nicest guys in the squad. And he's hilarious. And he clearly lifts the squad. Like, both of them together, like, clearly lift the squad morale, like, on their own, right? Like, if it's like Football Manager, like, they're like responsible for like 2 arrows up, like, alone, like, which is like unbelievable. Right?
There's our Football Manager mention. Everyone taking the shot.
And Andy also is very excited about Hinchelwood as well, which I think is natural. Like, the growth is there. I thought he really benefited from sitting out for a few games and coming back and randomly playing striker and scoring goals, which is great. Steven in the chat also, and it is worth bringing, I am going to bring this one up because it's worth it. One of the highlights of the season was Veltman's dark arts and getting Declan Rice sent off. Truly, like, it was so long ago and at the beginning of the year, like the season, but like, I've never seen Arsenal melt down about such a strange minor thing as that. Like, they melt down about just about everything, but that one was special. Like, they really will hate Veltman for the rest of their lives because they only got a point at home against Brighton. It's phenomenal. All right, and then last thing on the season before we move on to, well, we've already covered a fair bit of this, to be fair, in transfers and stuff, but let's talk quick fire round, very quick, no need for reasoning, just give me a letter. Final grade for Herzl's first season as Brighton & Hove Albion manager, and we will start with his biggest fan, Robinho.
B+.
B.
That's just so negative.
Taking the mantle. Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
told,
so
I was,
negative,
I
man.
was told no commentary.
A-, I think is we would have got Europe if Palace didn't do their thing.
B as well. And B is good, by the way. Like, I don't think B is bad at all.
What world are we living in now?
We'll wait till August. One game, we win 2-0 instead of 4-0, and it's like he's lost it. He's lost the dressing room. Look at him. They don't want to play for him. I hate him. Get rid of him.
Let's add. We have to add some reasoning because for me, you cannot give B+ to a manager who, in my opinion, and I think this is fairly accurate, at one point in the season, over 50% of the fan base wanted to get rid of him. At a point in the season, over half of our fan base wanted Herzl to be sacked. So unless we got Champions League football at the end of it, I can't see getting to a B+ overall on the season. And as Josh said, a B is still a very good representation of a season with ups and downs, but he's come in, he's proven a point where he's adapted, made tactical changes, and has improved as a manager for points at the season where you could argue this was a complete abject failure and it was a D-rated hire, which I think, Robin, you would have agreed with a few months ago. It's somewhere there.
I think for me, the grade is partly discontextualized by what I said at the beginning, which is I'm never going to be unhappy with finishing top half in the Premier League. So I think by virtue of being top half in the Premier League, it has to be a relatively high grade.
What would you give Ange?
It's a really interesting one because, I mean, we can go off on a tangent about this. I think he's been very, very unlucky to lose his job for me. If you're going to win a European trophy, yeah, they've had a dreadful season, but they got to a point in the Premier League campaign. I think we talked about this in another episode where they've clearly prioritized at a certain point in the Premier League since they've prioritized Europe over the Premier League. So you've seen a natural drop off from that. But if you said to every Spurs fan, or Daniel Levy for that matter, would you have rather finished 10th and not won the Europa League? Because like if he finishes 10th, I don't think he's getting the sack.
No.
So, like, would you rather finish 10th in the Premier League and not win a European trophy, or would you rather finish 17th and end up in the Champions League and with a trophy with it? Like it's bonkers.
What's
So
the point? What's the point of football?
To win stuff.
Yeah, right. So surely, I don't.
He's won. I mean, he's won like this. I mean, it's obviously it's not the Champions League, but it's a significant trophy, and it ends up with a spot in the Champions League. So I think he's had. I mean, the question is, who's had a better season, Spurs or Arsenal? You could make an argument for it being Spurs.
They're both going to play Champions League football, so who knows?
Yeah, and one of them's done it with and has added and has blown the cobwebs off their trophy cabinet, right? Anyway,
it's a really curious. I think it's a really curious case of how they've assessed that. I also think it's worked out really nicely for Ange because he walks away. He came good on his word. I always win in the second season. He won in the second season. He's made a lot of Spurs fans happy. They've changed the outlook of that club by winning silverware. And he walks off and doesn't have to prove himself next year. So when they finish 15th next year, then he doesn't have to then go, oh, he's a failed manager. He's now a success. He's a success. So I think it's more Spurs shooting themselves in the foot, to be quite honest. But anyway, what is this podcast again?
Yeah, no, I agree with you for what it's worth. I think most people do. All right, cool. Let's move on. Let's talk transfers out, transfers in, and how we're feeling about this. Because we have an awful lot of players on the books that we do not know the future of. We have Costolis, whatever the hell his name is going to be. We'll wait for him to be announced before we start.
Babis. There we go.
Buscagli and Watson, the ones that are either fully confirmed or seem to be all but over the line, barring a late swoop for the Greek anyway. And then outward, João Pedro looks to be almost guaranteed, right? Like he's almost the same sort of level as like the Greek kid, right? Like where barring something very strange happening, he's coming in, he's going out. Mitoma is very much 50-50. The vultures are circling, but we know he's actually happy to stay. So it's a weird, but he is 28. Now's the time to cash in if we ever want to. Weird situation with him. Igor, much to my absolute emotional heartbreak, looks to be heading out. Matt O'Reilly, who has came out at the end of the season, clearly not happy here under Hertzler and being played in the positions he's being played in. All sorts of stuff about him going to Italy and elsewhere. Purvis Estupinian, apparently a target for Manchester United and about 4 different clubs in Europe as well. Champions League level clubs to play left back there. Terret Lamptey looks like he's surely not going to play another game for the Albion. Simon Adinkra, clearly like his pecking order place has fallen apart, right? And Ciso, Sarmiento, you've got also, Ayari, right? Like, even though he's had a good season, you got to include him. Webster, Jason Steele, even. So what are your thoughts on the future of this? A whole bunch of outbound players. Who do you think is bound to leave? What are your thoughts on losing some of these players and your thoughts on the incoming as well?
I think we've got a squad of 47 players when I was looking it up yesterday, which is just bonkers. I mean, like I said earlier, I think actually the the focus of this window is actually trimming things down in certain areas and getting us to a balanced point of view. We've got so many players out on loan that it's almost difficult. I think the easier option is to actually ask the question of the players who've been out on loan this season, which ones of them are going to end up in the first team squad and not either leaving next year permanently or going back out on loan again. Because I think that narrows it down. Because otherwise you could list 20 players potentially who might be going across the club. So there's an argument, Buonanotte, there's an argument for him. It's going to be a conversation. I mean, he's played a season in the Premier League pretty much. So if Matt O'Reilly goes, is there a room for Buonanotte in the squad? Who knows? I think of the ones who've been out on loan, Malcuy, who's had a brilliant season in
lots
in
to talk
Austria.
about him.
He's one to come back in. So I think it's probably easier to frame it in that way. Who's actually going to break into this squad? Who's been on the club's books last season but not been in the squad? It's probably those two, really. I mean, Osman's not had brilliant reviews from what I've seen from his loan spell. We know that Enciso wants to go. Ferguson similarly discussed. So I think there's not going to be many sort of breaking back in, I don't think.
It's cliche to say it, but I think the most important one is the player you keep. And obviously that player is Aaron Cashin. But outside of Mitoma, obviously, yeah, Cashin. We're going to talk about Cashin at some point, right? It's what the hell was that? The João Pedro one is obviously going to be the blockbuster in all likelihood. There's rumors that are just fresh as we're recording, and these are just rumors that because Victor Osimhen just turned down Al Hilal, they've now turned their attention potentially to a João Pedro. And that is something you could see happening. It's very cliche, isn't it? One of the Brazilian, not quite top tier player heads out to lands unknown. We see Oscar to China. I mean, so many Brazilian players end up going to play elsewhere. I could see that one, and I would love that. Can you imagine how much money we'd get for that? It'd be great. If not, we're going to be dealing with Newcastle, who are going to lowball the hell out of us and try and point to PSR, despite the fact that they're going to funnel some BS money somehow through whatever unwarranted ways they're going to do it. So that'll be interesting. But I think that's going to be a real shame because Pedro's going to go and Igor's probably going to go. We're going to be Brazilianness. There's no Brazilians in this squad after that, and that's
Brazilians out, Greeks in.
Yeah,
that's the new trend, boys.
Do another shot because this does feel like it feels. You know, when for the Football Manager, Brazil's got too competitive. Take your scouts out of Brazil. I'm going to look for wonder kids now in Scandinavia and Greece. That's where I'm going to go. It's just there's less hot property, but yeah, I think the João Pedro one, depending on how that works out, is obviously going to be the one where we've got the money. The PSR piece though, because people will probably ask about that. From what I've seen, we're the second healthiest team in the Premier League when it comes to PSR because of all those outgoings and the way the contracts have been set up a couple of years back, because we were a massive outflow of players obviously 2-3 years ago. And even though the money we spent last year isn't necessarily on the books yet in a lot of ways, and we've got a lot of wiggle room to play with. So despite the fact the club and Naylor and everyone has come out and said this won't be a big signing season, I still think we're still going to spend a decent amount of money.
Yeah, agreed. I think we could spend like 250 million quid. I think roughly from what I saw.
Somewhere there, 220
PSR headroom, something like that.
And then you saw Pedro, and yeah.
It's all over 3 years though, isn't it? So like I think that's the indication is that you could go and spend it this year, but then next year you'll find yourself in a hole once the Caicedo money drops off that 3-year schedule. So like that's where you kind of have to be a little bit better with it. Yeah. I can't see anyone on loan coming back in and being part of the squad. It just feels inevitable that some of these players are going to leave. You're in CISOs again. We talked about Ferguson and the cliff that he's fell off. Like even the Buonanotte as well, who was doing really well and under Cooper until Van Nistelrooy came in and basically just shunned him out. That's tough because if he had a really good season with Leicester, you'd absolutely see him coming back in and competing with the Gruders and the O'Reillys of the world. So I guess there's a little bit of perspective and maybe a bit of context there. But we've got so many
The Greek
people out
guy
on
is
loan.
technically on loan, isn't he?
Yeah.
The one
Yeah,
Greek striker
yeah.
is technically on loan, isn't he? Just
Yeah.
to be pedantic, but you might still be right. He might go out on loan.
Yeah, I got beaten by a technicality, but it's I just think, and you can also see with the Greek position as well. Like, let's get 2 of them in so they can be best buds and they can adapt and do it a little bit quicker. Again, it's hallmarks of what we've seen this club do over and over again, and it's smart. It's very smart. In terms of outgoings, if Kadioglu is fit and raring to go at left back, I don't mind Estepinian going out. I know that might be a hot take for some people because he's a very good left back. But I also think you've got some of the players here in the highlight or maybe the twilight of their careers, where you hit 28, 29, and that's the time you need to start chasing silverware and start going for that stuff. Now, if he goes to a club that has the ability to win silverware, then great. Like, I don't mind. But I also think there is some serious competition for some of these places. And we might see a couple of players that we've had on the books for a while do leave and bring in some fresher blood. I apart from this Greek teenager that we're willing to spend 50 million quid on, I really don't see us overreaching in money, right? I think we're going to spend what we earn this summer, and that's absolutely fine.
I would love your guys' opinions on positions of need, or like one position of need that stands out to you that you would really like us to bolster in this summer. Because I was half tempted to just copy and paste, like edit and cut over what I've said for the past 2 years, it feels like. But I would really love to go into next season with an actual right back that can play right back as their natural position. Kyle Walker-Peters seems to be on the rumor mill. I will absolutely be scrolling back through and finding that from January, where I said that we should sign him if Southampton go down. At that point, they were pretty much already rinsed as well, weren't they? Because I think that's an absolutely fantastic signing. Like, he's homegrown, he's experienced, he's exactly in that age range I just talked about, and he's in a position that we desperately need a player. And if we do transition to a back three, he's played there all season this year, like under Martin and whoever the lad is that's there now. Like, Martin's like worst guy, and then Rusk is Rusk now, isn't it? Like, I don't know.
No, they've got Will Still.
Great, brilliant.
That's right. Now that is the Football Manager guy, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. We've gone full circle. And I think he can play. He can cover both sides, can't he? As well, I think.
He can. He's a natural right back, but he can definitely play on the left if he has to. A bit like Kadioglu being the opposite way. Like, he's a left back but can play right back if he has to. What about you guys? What is your position of need for you guys? And if it's the same, fair enough. But like, I would love to hear you guys and what you think.
It's not so much a position as we need a bit more pace across certain areas of the team. If I had to pick a position other than fullback, I think that's centre half depth. Obviously, we've got Boskagli coming in, but if you want to talk about playing a back three, you've talked about Igor potentially going, so that's a 1 in, 1 out scenario. So it doesn't necessarily actually add us any more depth. And we've got question marks over Dunk, and we've seen Webster come in and be very good, but he's still got his injury problems with him. So I think we need another centre back. Cashin is just not going to be the answer, I don't think. So centre half, we need a bit more depth anyway.
You know, I think number 9 would have been one of the answers to this before this bit of business potentially gets wrapped up. We've also been really heavily linked with that gigantic German striker too. What's his name? Voltermeda or something? Plays for Stuttgart. It's like 6'6". But there's lots of clubs interested in him, so I wouldn't necessarily think he would potentially end up on our books, especially if we sign this Greek lad. The other one, it goes back to everyone. We've already talked about this, but the left wing. We've seen that Mitoma cannot play every game. We've also probably seen that Mitoma is not going to be here for longer than 1-2 years maximum. You've got to have a succession plan there, and the succession plan is not Simon Adingra. A lot of people talking about Adingra going out and selling him. I don't know what you can sell him for at this point. I know that Didn't De Zerbi want him at Marseille last year? That was a rumor. Is that a thing? They're playing Champions League football now, so don't know if we want him in there. But we need a left winger. I've got no idea who that's going to be, or whether Hertzler thinks he can take a right winger and lob him over the left side and everything will be gravy. But that's the other one. I tell you, there's one other name that I just don't know. I don't think this is a transfer point to make, but I just don't know what we're going to do with them. What are we doing with Solly March? What player is there left in that after that injury? Because we came back, I think everyone had really high hopes, and understandably, after a long injury, he came back and he scored that wonder goal, but didn't offer a lot else elsewhere. Are we going to get the Solly March that played under Roberto De Zerbi or not? And if so, like, where's he? And does he play? Mintez sort of locked down that right wing role now, hasn't he, for the most part? I don't know. That's a confusing one for me.
Yeah, it's right back and left wing. I think those are the areas that you need the most. I think not really too much else to add. I think with the three at the back thing, I don't see it happening the way that maybe most people do. I think if you're going to play three at the back, you're going to play basically a central midfielder as the third centre back. You might see Weaver there. You might see Baleba come in. You saw that a couple of times this season already. I don't think you need 5 centre backs because I don't think we're playing 3 centre backs in the same team at the same time. So we'll see. I think, obviously if Boskagli does come in, fantastic. You've got him, Dunk, Van Hecker, Webster, if Igor's on the way. And then sort of cash in as that sort of emergency centre back, I guess. I think that's probably what he was brought in for. So, yeah, I think the main thing is just having depth at those fullback areas. If Kadioglu moves to the right, you need a left back. If Estepinian goes, if Kadioglu is playing left back, we need 2 right backs because, we'll see what happens with Veltman with 1 more year. So it's just the wide areas. I think we're stacked in the middle. I don't think we need a change. Some people have said goalkeeper. Again, I don't want to unlock that box. I think Verbruggen is more than fine given the errors that we saw this year. I think I'm happy with him. When it comes to Steele, we mentioned him very briefly. I don't think it's worth having Rushworth stay on the bench and have Verbruggen as the one. So I'd be happy for Steele to stay and just be the bench keeper.
I am going to unlock the box, and it's only solely because we've seen both goalkeeping coaches leave this week. And I was going to bring it up regardless, just because it is like a big. I mean, this is one of those areas where it's a strange one because statistically, Bart Verbruggen was the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League last season. He conceded more goals on like expected goals, whatever, all the metrics that judge goalkeepers. He was the second worst goalkeeper in the Premier League, or Onana was the second worst. He was the worst goalkeeper in the Premier League, and it was quite bad at the end of the year. But we've binned off both of our goalkeeping coaches. We'll obviously be bringing in new personnel there, which is a big change. He's been dropped for the Dutch squad. And we also have Carl Rushworth, who is obviously a massive talent behind him. And Jason Steele, who is probably going to be pretty happy settling as a cup goalkeeper next season, given the injury he had and all that stuff. I'm sure he's going to want to be number 1 at some point, but I think he's at a stage in his career where he knows he's not going to be number 1 come August. So what do we do with Carl Rushworth and the promise that he shows? Do we send him out on yet another loan and like promise him like what do we do with him? Because he's such a talent, and he's a homegrown player. What are we hoping to see this new coaching team do to improve Bart? Because it's a weird one for me where I feel like Bart's poor form has been a symptom of, barring his penalty saves, which is shocking, has been a symptom of the injuries in front of him all year long as well. So and it's also the one position on the entire pitch or the entire football personnel area where you can't blame Fabian Hertzler. You can't lay any blame at his door. They are such a separate entity within a football squad that you can't put any of that on Hertzler unless he's asking him to play prime Neuer, right? Where he wants him on halfway, spraying passes around. Then we blame him. But like for what he's asking him to do, like it's not anything beyond what a modern goalkeeper is being asked to do. And we've binned off the entire goalkeeping staff. What do you think the hope here is from the club doing something quite drastic like that? Because Jack Stern had been with us for what, 10 odd years? It felt like he'd been in for ages. And we have two incredibly young, incredibly talented goalkeepers on the books. What's the plan?
Are they bringing in a Dutch person?
Yeah, I think so. It looked like it. There's a Dutch guy coming in. Rushworth's a funny one because he's been the next best thing. Well, you know, the next kind of big thing coming up for 3 or 4 years now. And
every loan he gets is every loan he goes on, he comes back with rave reviews from the team. That's the weirdest thing.
I mean, the question I'd throw back to you is like, let's say somebody comes in with a really big offer for Bart this summer, like Bayern Munich, or someone comes in with an offer that we're just not going to refuse, like 60 million quid or something. Like is Rushworth? The big question is like, is Rushworth stepping in to be number one, or would the club go and buy another goalkeeper? Because if Rushworth is not going to step in and be number one at this point, what's the point?
Because you've got him and Sherpen as well, right? Who's Anglian and is in the Dutch squad. So
yeah.
Sherpen.
And we've got, and Beadle's already going back out on loan anyway. So you've
Beadle's Beadle about, yeah.
So we've got a few options there, but my short answer would be, yeah, I'd give Rushworth a go and just see. I think you're right. Like every time he goes out on loan, he gets good reviews, he gets good ratings. It's a solid performer. Like just drop him in, see what he does.
I think it's a great point, though, Craig, because like he is the forgotten man, Kjell Sherpen. He has had he is another one that's going out on loan to all these teams, coming back with rave reviews, and he's done well enough to get himself into the Dutch squad. Like this is not like a, you know what I mean? Like he's not just like fodder, right? Like Beadle is, like the way like, or McGill, right? Where you know that like his level is probably never going to be at the top yet, or ever possibly with Tom McGill. Sherpen is like, you've got to be asking a question somewhere. Like, I feel like he is going to be one of those ones that will absolutely get looked at in preseason and a decision.
He gave an interview last week where basically said he was going to leave.
Oh,
when he got to the Dutch squad, he basically said, I'm going to have these internationals. I'm going to go and have a holiday. And then basically we're going to try and find a new club. Was basically what he said. And
then a whole new Dutch coaching staff come in. They go, Kjell, we want you to come here and at least work out preseason. And on August 16th, he's our starting goalkeeper in the whole world. Yeah. Like that. Can you not see that?
Yeah, no, you can.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I mean, did we say this name? We're trying to get Yelten. I can't say his name. There's a lot of like Dutch letters. Well, there's normal letters, but it's a really Dutch name. The goalkeeping coach we're trying to get from Leicester. Supposedly he
did wonders with Onana at Man United, so I can't see any reason why we wouldn't want to get him in.
Yeah, well, we'll see about that. I made the mistake of looking up Verbruggen's stats while you were talking, but the regular stats that they are bad, but there were some goalkeepers doing worse on certain things. And by the way, let's also be honest with us. I don't think there's like, unless I'm missing it, maybe it's somewhere hidden in Opta. There's a stat for outstanding reflex saves and shot stopping. Verbruggen is incredible at those. There's some shots he saved that he had absolutely no right of saving at all. But do you know what his penalty percentage save is? He faced more penalties than any other goalkeeper in the league this year. 9 penalties. Do you know what his percentage save rate is?
0.
Yeah, 0%. Yeah. His career, he's saved 1 in his professional career,
and that was for the Dutch team in the penalty shootout, I think.
Like yeah, that's right. Because we went through this one episode, didn't we, a few months ago? Mm-hmm. It's not good there, but I still think I think Verbruggen's going to be absolutely fine. I really do. I'm not particularly worried about him. Of all the things we can worry about,
let's hit our last section. And Craig, I know you're about to drop, so I want to hit you right before you go. What would you consider a successful season for this football club next year?
Next year, any European football.
That's the target for you.
You have to take the next step, right? You have, like we said, I gave an A-, right? It's pretty high compared to the rest, but like you have an inexperienced manager, you've got a bunch of new players, you spent a lot of money, you had the most injuries in the league, and you still very nearly got Conference League, right? So like the next logical step, if you have to move forward, it has to be European football. Like if you have to say we need to do better than this year, it has to be European football. Now, I don't mind whether that's Conference League, whether that's Europa League, heavens forbid if it's the Champions League, right? But that's the next step. If you missed out because a team in 12th won the FA Cup, otherwise you would have got Conference League, then the next step is to be in that European competition. But, you know, it's easier said than done. Obviously, you're going to have a Spurs team that may have Thomas Frank there, who is a very good manager. You're going to have, you know, a Man United team that is already spending big. You've got teams already getting better. So you don't know. Well, it's the 8th of June. So like, you know, we can't really say anything. But if logically you need to be better than this season, then Europe is the aim.
Yeah, yes. I think you're right. Especially people aren't going to forget the money that was spent last year too. And everyone gives the first people a break on their first season for the most part, apart from Paul Weaver. And you go, all right, we'll give them a year to figure it out. It's like, well, okay, now you should have figured this out a bit, and we do need to be at that level to continue this system. See, Craig, this system, a lot of other fan bases comment on and say it's not sustainable. The Brighton model is not sustainable because you're a selling club. Technically, every club is, but you can't always find these gems. And I think there's a bit of truth in that, right? You cannot always just unearth Carlos Balebas and Moises Caicedo's before him, and Alexis McAllister's, and why am I blanking on our amazing former defensive midfielder that went to Spurs? But you can't keep finding those players over and over again. So what do you have to do? Well, at a certain point, you have to be able to keep these players for a little bit longer, so your conveyor belt of incoming players can refresh. Europe gets you a bit of that. It's already been talked about how if we'd have qualified for Europe, I think the Matoma rumours do go away more than they have. Basuma, thank you, completely blanked. If you don't qualify for Europe, those players that are thinking about it, like, you know what, should I stay for another year or not? Nah, you know what, I'll go because I'm not going to get European football with Brighton. Whereas if you can offer that, this becomes a place you stay for another 1 to 2 seasons, and the club needs that to replenish, in my opinion. So I'm right there with Cray, but my word, is it going to be competitive? It's going to be so competitive.
I agree with you both. Though I think you've got to look at it as like the target, and you should be judged not exactly kindly if you fail to deliver. And I know that's so harsh to say, but like, I'm sorry, but like, from a fan base perspective, maybe I'm the odd outlier here, but like, we have a better squad than Crystal Palace. We have a better team than them. We have a better setup. We have a better everything. They won a trophy last year. Not making Europe or a final is unacceptable to me next year. And unfortunately, that is made worse because of what happened this year. So now for me, the pressure has mounted massively, where our biggest rivals have just scammed a trophy. Like, but they did it. Like, they did it. Like, we haven't. We never have. So like, for me, like, you've got to achieve something next season. We've spent a shit ton of money. We've got some absolutely unbelievable players on the books. And this is Tony Bloom's thing, right? Like, he's built this club into this machine. Like, if his aim is to become almost like a lower level Arsenal, where it was like 4th place was a trophy under Wenger towards the end, right? Like, and they were like mocked for being like 4th place was their trophy, and like they were delighted with it. If top half is our trophy and we're buzzing about it, I would rather our staff just say that that's what we're aiming for, like, so fans can adjust their expectations. And frankly, however harsh it is, like, stop showing up. if 10th is like the absolute best thing that our ownership and team want, and actually the idea is just to churn out profit and a top 10 finish and be perfectly happy charging 75 quid for a season, end of season attendance like dinner and like 16 quid for a double cheeseburger, like, and they're happy with that, great. But like, I'd rather just know sooner than later, because this team need to do something next year for me. Like, I don't care. Like, we need to do something. I don't care if we lose Mitoma, we lose Pedro. Sign someone then. Like, your biggest rivals have just won a trophy and are going to be playing in Europe while you do nothing. Like,
well, we've got to preempt the outrage from the people listening to this, who are invariably going to be like, "What are you talking about? This club was playing in a blah blah blah. And we were nearly dead a few years ago." Yes, sure, but you're signing an 18-year-old Greek kid for like 50 million. Like, this is not that club. Yes, it is in name, but you are not playing in that same place anymore. You have multiple millions and millions and millions and millions of pounds flowing in and out of this club. The expectations have to shift. They have to. You can't have that mentality. If you continue with that mentality, then you're that side that comes up. You're a Luton. You come up, you go back down, and then you get lost in the shuffle. And that's not this club.
I guess that's pretty much it then. So let's do just a last couple of things that have gone on over the last couple of weeks. We've already covered the European nonsense with Palace, covered a little bit of Ange bouncing. What do you guys make of Liverpool's absolutely mental spending spree? They have already got Frimpong in, and they're about to do £120 million for Verts. What if
they basically didn't buy anyone? They didn't buy anyone last summer, did they? So they've got
No one.
They've basically got 3 windows. They've got 3 windows worth of spending to do, on top of having gone another Champions League season and winning the Premier League. So I mean, they'll go higher. I mean, I don't think they're anywhere close to being done yet.
I mean, it's silly. I saw some fan tweet about this. I think it was a Sunderland fan talking about how like our entire team costs like 8 million, and they're signing a player for whatever silly amount of money it is, 130, 140 million or whatnot. Yeah, again, goes back to what I just said. It's a whole different ball game now. Man City, you're going to come back in a big way, right? And they've already made some astute signings. They made an astute signing in January, which is a rarity, right? I think Marmoush looks like a special player. I think they've just finalized Reinders, the Dutch midfielder from AC Milan. He looks like a good proposition. I forget who else they're bringing on. Aren't they getting Kirkez from Bournemouth? Is he going there?
Potentially, yeah. Bournemouth are being a bit pillaged, aren't they, already?
They're fully, which is, it's sad for them. Oh, the other one that City are signing, the Ait Nouri, who we talked about when we played them. We're like, that kid, that he's going to go to a big club. Or yeah, turns out probably is. So those are the kind of smart signings that Man City needed to make, shore up their midfield, bring in some other goal scorers. I think it's going to be really, really tricky right at the upper echelons of the table. I think Arsenal missed their chance this year. I think they missed their chance. They're going to go and try and sign either Benjamin Sesko, I think, is the one that they're most heavily rumored with. Gyökeres, they've been talked about for quite a while as well. But they'll lob a number 9 up there finally, and I think they'll find out they've been outgunned by Liverpool and Man City, and they missed that window, and then everyone else is going to be trying to stab one another for fourth. It's going to be season.
Chelsea have got their number 9 now as well.
Chelsea, yeah.
Liam Delap is going to do as their number 9.
If you look at history, then you're going to say it's going to be horrendous.
Yeah, like it was such a strange. It's a strange sign, but also not, because I guess they are very scattergun, aren't they? But I tell you, and the reason I'm so ambitious or demanding of this squad is because I think that we are going to see some teams do just what Spurs and United did this year. I don't think it's a guaranteed massive clubs all finish near the top. I think City and Chelsea both played in this Club World Cup. Like, it's going to affect them long term. And they both have to play Champions League football as well. So, both of those teams will have that on their backs. Forest have got a massive mountain to climb with their squad depth and Europe and Nuno. You've got Palace with the exact same problem, right? Like, the run that Palace have been on in the last end of the season and Forest at the beginning, phenomenal. But as soon as 1 or 2 of those players get hurt, their backup is non-existent. And we've seen how many teams have we seen of that stature get into Europe, sign another 6 or 7 players, half of them be absolute dog shit, the depth not be there, and then finish risky, right?
Mhm.
I'm convinced that United aren't going to do anything. I'm convinced they're cursed. I really don't think they're going to be any higher than like 9th next season. I really don't. Like, I would put them at that as their limit.
By the
just
way, I
don't
mean,
think Amorim is that good.
who knows with them, but I think it's easier to predict disappointment with Manchester United, or depending on your perspective. For me, it's great. But even when you remove those three that we talked about and the Chelsea being added to that mix, Newcastle, who obviously, you know, Foxy in the chat's talking about Newcastle and João Pedro potentially going there, and those rumours seem to be massively heating up, even as we continue to record this podcast. They're going to be right there. Spurs, I mean, Spurs are going to be pushing to finish in top 4 again with a new manager.
Are they?
Well, that's the idea.
Like, is Thomas Frank good at like it? Like, he is one of those guys that, like, he's been a one-man club his entire Premier League life. Like, is he as good as he probably? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, I agree with you. Like, he should turn that team around and take them up the table. But like, we've seen other managers like that come in and really impress you with a smaller team, Graham Potter, and go to a big side and like play like just absolutely lose it. Like,
no, they've already done it. Well, I guess we've been around a little bit more, but yeah,
I think we're going to see that again. I really do. Like, he's already showed that he couldn't handle like the horrendous level of fixture congestion that European clubs get, and like he's going to have a team with even less money and less like depth this time around. Like, I think it's going to be rough for them.
Well, let me ask you this though, right? And I know we've got to wrap up here, but so Villa's another one, but Villa's one that's really suffered with. They prioritized their Champions League run, started to suffer towards the end of the year. They didn't have the squad depth, had to make all those loan signings in January and whatnot. But you know, a lot of money has been poured into Villa, as you made us aware of as well. But if you ask the fan base of each club, right, whether they think they should be in European football next season, tell me whether you think this is it. They would say yes or no. Liverpool.
Yep.
Arsenal.
Yep.
City.
Yep.
Newcastle.
Yes. Probably.
Villa.
Yep.
Forest.
I don't think they are arrogant enough to think that they should secure Europe again next season. I think the general thing I've seen online is most of them aren't expecting Europe next season, but they are expecting to do like a 10th, whereas I think they might be a lot worse. But I think a lot of them are expecting like a mid-table average season, and I think most of them are honestly thinking they can win the Conference League, and I'm not entirely against the idea. Go on.
Brighton?
Yep.
Bournemouth?
That's a big asterisk because Iraola is potentially on the out. Half their squad is potentially on the out. I think if you ask them in August, I think if you ask them at the end of the season, the answer is yes. If you ask them in August, I think the answer might be no. I think the answer in August might be a bit meltdown, like survive.
Same for Brentford then, because they're being pillaged.
Absolutely. 1000% Brentford are on that list.
Fulham?
No.
You don't think they would say they expect Europe?
No.
Palace?
Yes, they're stupid enough to think that.
Everton?
Yes.
Different team under Moyes.
New stadium and Moyes. I think they're definitely going to be buzzing for it. Whether that's realistic or not, I don't know, because once the new manager bounce wore off, Moyes' Everton became a very like 13th place consistent team. Do I think that team's going to get them higher to 6th place? Like, no, I don't think realistically
West Ham
they're going to be in the mix. No,
but
their fans will think
fan
they
base.
should. Their fan base, yes. Anyone with a brain, no.
I think I genuinely think from the West Ham fans I know, because that's obviously the area I grew up in. I think they're broken. I think they're finally broken, and I don't know if they expect it. Manchester United, they would say yes, right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
Wolves,
no.
Spurs,
yes.
Okay, so you've said yes to 1, 2. I'm not going to include West Ham. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 teams all expect Europe.
Yep, I think that's about the right amount.
All right,
no, 12. You forgot Leeds.
Oh God, you are absolutely correct. Yeah, sorry, you are correct. Yeah.
Of course, they're going to expect Europe.
Yeah.
Minimum.
I didn't include the relegated / promoted sides, and you are right there. Yeah. But so okay, 11 / 12. But I mean,
do you know what? Like, it is like tongue in cheek, but actually, like, I suspect that a large chunk of their fan base would be deluded enough to think it because they thought it last time too.
Oh boy, yeah. All right. Well, yeah. I wanted to end on just when we're setting expectations for next season. I think we're all bullish and we all want. But this was also a weird season where we got the coefficient, the extra place, and the way the cup stuff went down. That we had the other. We just had a more European clubs qualifying for Europe in the for the Premier League than ever. Right. This was the most ever. And I think this
9
is
teams, I think.
so outlier, right? So that's going to be an outlier. Yeah, because you had the top 7 plus Palace and Spurs.
Yep. So
half
stupid.
the Premier League qualified for Europe nearly.
And we weren't one of them.
And we, well, as of recording, we are not included in that.
But yeah, this is all obviously asterisked by the fact that, as one of you said, it's the 8th of June. Like, a lot can change between now and the 8th of August, where we'll be recording, like, for the new season. I think this is going to be us until about then, I would assume, like, for our kind of like pre-season preview, barring the fact that obviously if anything falls in our favor in regards to UEFA, I expect there will probably be an emergency podcast.
That is actual emergency podcast territory. The only other one is if it's an Ansu Fati level signing.
Yeah, without hindsight, like.
Yeah.
When we're blindly optimistic,
yeah.
All right, cool. So we will. Well, we'll see when we see it. Have a great summer. It's supposed to be quite a hot one over here, which is always a bit grim with the lack of AC. But you'll love it over there. You'll be just fine.
No, we still complain by go outside because you have to go outside and it gets unbearably humid here in the northeast. But yeah, it's just you know what? I think it's nice to have a summer where we can actually disconnect a bit. I know the Club World Cup is there, but again, who sort of cares about that? We can have a full reset, come back, and everyone's going to be absolutely gagging for football when it really comes back. And that's a nice thing.
Absolutely. Mega. All right. Have a wonderful summer, everybody. Stay safe out there. Hopefully we'll see you all in August. And yeah, just have a lovely time.
Thanks all for listening. We really appreciate it. So thank you for joining us each week, especially for those of you that are regulars. We can't thank you enough.
Oh, and Robert Gilbert, congratulations on the Fantasy Premier League title win. The belt is now with you. Join next year, see if you can beat him, and have a good one.